Welcome to the podcast, Narcissist, I'm Asking for a Friend. Karen Maldonado and Tyler King are talking about how narcissists become who they are, common issues that arise when doing life with a narcissist, and some episodes will include special guests. So listen in and learn from two people who have an abundance of experience on the
Have you ever questioned if the person that you're with is a narcissist? Well, today, Karen and we are going to discuss things that you need to look out for with the person that has the "it's all about me" complex. So, Karen, this is Karen Maldonado. She's a therapist, so she has dealt with this so much. And then I have had my own personal experience with narcissism in different relationships. So, we're going to give you a great perspective on both sides so that we can get to the bottom of this and help you to understand if this is something that you're dealing with. So, Karen, tell us, how do you know? You have probably people come into your office all the time, and you talk with them. How do they know if they start to question and wonder if the person that they're dating or married to is potentially a narcissist?
Right, good question. So there's a little checklist that I'll go over with my clients just to see is this what happens, and is this what happens, and is this what happens? And so they may not hit on all of the points. They might not check off every box.
Okay.
If they don't, the less they check off, the better, right? But
exactly.
But we're going to see. And so I'm going to actually read from a checkoff list that I have just so that you can see, and then people can be kind of thinking and listening and see if this matches what they've been experiencing. So realize that it's not about you, the comments, judgments, and accusations they make. So this is what you're supposed to be thinking about. Are there comments, judgments, and accusations that they make are about them and their perception of the world? They were born having to fend for themselves and have a skewed idea of how they need to be in the world. Now, I've discussed before with you, Tyler, and on our previous podcast that, yes, that is a more common way, but there are two other ways that I've seen a lot of it. There are probably some other ways, but the majority of the ones that I've dealt with, this has been the issue for them, that they grew up either having to fend for themselves, like this says, or they were coddled so much that they never heard the word no, or it's learned behavior. So it could be that they had a parent or a caregiver that gave them, that was a narcissist, and then that gave them this learned behavior that they grew up with, and they saw, okay, so that manipulation works, so I'm going to be doing that. And so they learn, it's subconscious, they don't realize that they're taking notes and figuring out how to do this in life, but that's basically what happens. And so you might.
So the learned behavior, is that particularly from either the mother or the father, or could it be
whoever the caretaker is? Because some people that are caretakers might be a grandparent, or it might be a nanny, right? So it just depends on who's this child exposed to mostly, that they might pick up these traits from that person. So more than likely it is a parent, but it may not be. So and so they have a skewed idea of how they need to be in the world. The sad part is that this personality served them well as children and helped them physically and emotionally survive. They were unable to trust the people that they were supposed to have care for them. So this notion follows them into adulthood. And so if you are with someone that treats you, with these different narcissistic traits, think about it. Did they have a parent that was a narcissist, or does it seem like that's possible? A very controlling caretaker? Did they have to fend for themselves? And were they given everything they wanted? Were they never told no? Think about that. And then, there could be other ways too that it could have developed. And it looked like you might have had a question, Tyler.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as if they have always been able to get what they want, and they just basically threw tantrums, or do you feel like maybe there could be an instance of maybe the parents could have maybe felt guilty about something maybe that they failed to do or lacked to do as a parent, or maybe they feel inadequate as a parent, and they almost want to make the child that ends up becoming a narcissist, they almost put them on a level of a friend, and like they want to have the approval or of the child, to the extent of they would just give them everything that they want, never say no to them, maybe even as they get older bail them out of jail or make excuses for them or whatever it is that they do.
Yes.
Remember, they can never do no wrong, so that parent is just wanting to be in their good graces so much at the detriment of that child and their emotional and mental development, because this is what ends up happening to them in the end if this doesn't stop.
Right.
So what can be done to help people be able to maybe ask the right questions when they're dating, or maybe even a marriage, to kind of detect or to determine what was the upbringing like, to see if maybe if they've had this upbringing, they could have those tendencies towards that narcissistic type of behavior in the relationship.
Right. Well, if you still see the parent adult child relationship at play, is it one of those things where, the more senior parent of this adult is, still thinking that this person can do no wrong, and is there any sign, there may not be outward signs, it might be harder to figure out, especially in a dating relationship, but if you are invited to come to the house and you see that there's a very enmeshed relationship, and a relationship between a mother and a son where maybe they're talking to each other every day, and maybe a little more than seems normal for an adult man to be talking to his mom. I would say for a dad, it might not be so much of a weird thing, only because a lot of young men feel like their dad is their best friend. And so, that might not be an unhealthy thing. They like to run everything past them. So that could actually be a good thing if they have a close relationship with, especially with the same sex parent. With regard to having a parent, though, that always coddled the person, if the person has a hard time accepting when somebody tells them no at life and in a job, whatever, it's important for you to be listening for the different, cues that might be clues that might be there, that this person struggles with anybody saying no to him, and especially if he says, he or she has a hard time hearing you say no.
Wow.
There's a manipulative, maybe there's a manipulative aspect to how they conversate with you, and they want always to have their own way, and they're going to work their way around you, or they're going to get mad at you because you're not giving them what they want. And adult tantrums, that can happen.
Adult tantrum. Because I was going to say, when they're with their parent or around that parental figure, do they tend to act childlike, or does the parent tend to almost act like they're still that little kid or that teenager, like it's kind of a weird dynamic between the relationship? Is that something that you need to, or that you've seen, or that maybe that's something they need to look out for those types of relationships?
Yeah. If you see anything that seems off and not age appropriate for this adult to be acting like, those are definitely things to be watching. Some people just like to act goofy or silly and may seem childish, but they're being playful and they're kidding, and there's not like this very strange thing going on in the relationship. But if it's something that makes you kind of think that's strange, be watching.
Yeah, it's one of those things that even though that may be normal for their family, that doesn't mean that it's actually normal. So if you do start to raise an eyebrow, I guess that's an indicator that, hey, you may want to keep that in your back pocket, or, just make a note of that to look out for in future behavior as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. I'll read the second one on here. You cannot change or expect change from a person with narcissistic tendencies. Asking someone with narcissistic tendencies to change is like asking a river to begin flowing in the opposite direction. Your words and opinions mean nothing to them seriously. You can try and try, but at the end of the day, week, or 30 years, you finally realize that you have zero influence over their thoughts and behaviors.
Wow. So these people, they're just not able, they're not willing. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Are they just not willing to change?
Right, and they don't really feel like they're the problem. So
Mm.
why should I change? I'm not the problem. You're problem. You're the problem because you're the one that's having a problem with the way I behave. So
Right.
they'll try to point out the fact that they're not the one in the wrong here. You're the one that's having an issue, not them.
I think I've seen some type of meme or something where they say, when everyone else has to get therapy but that person. So it's like they can see everyone else needing therapy or everyone else having the problem, but they can't, they're so blind to their own faults and flaws, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, wow, that's interesting. So, when you're in a relationship with this person, you'll just constantly hear stuff like, well, you should have done this, or, that didn't make sense when that happened, or, my boss, like if it's something with their boss, well, my boss was wrong, or the coworkers are
Right.
wrong, or.
It's about making excuses. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
never accepting accountability for their wrongs, not seeing that they're ever wrong, and
Right.
blame shifting. That's a big thing with narcissism. It's shifting the blame onto somebody else or taking the spotlight off the problem that they created and putting it
Right.
in a reaction to their bad behavior. So yeah, it's a lot of that going on. So the third one here says you can change yourself to have a cordial but depthless relationship with someone who has
Mm.
narcissistic personality disorder. If so, we're talking about narcissistic traits, and if it's all the traits and all the criteria are met for a narcissistic personality disorder, then
Right.
yeah, this definitely would make it very hard to have a good relationship with them. And so you can.
So is it like surface level, like they don't ever want to get deep, or like if you ever try to tell them something maybe very emotional, or something that happened in your childhood, or you want to just kind of share your heart, do they just kind of like cut you off, or like what is the kind of thing that they'll do?
They'll use the information you share with them against you in the future.
Okay.
So if, let's say, you say that my dad abandoned me when I was a little kid, and then he knows that information about how painful it was for you, or she knows how painful it was for
Right.
the husband, right? So now that's information that was shared. And so now maybe the argument that they're having right now is that he wants to go on a trip without her with his friends.
Mm.
The problem is that she never can do anything like that, but he's getting to do that. So there's the double standard, of course, that also plays in.
Oh yeah, of
And
course.
so, she's trying to voice her upset about this double standard. And then he says to her, he goes into her past and he says, the whole reason why you even have a problem with this is because you have such a fear of abandonment and you always become a drama queen or a drama king. And now I'm, going to be left here having to stay home because of what your dad did.
Oh
So it's always
wow.
blame shifting. It's not taking the true problem and dealing with the problem. It's taking it and making the problem something else.
Yeah, because it is very unusual for someone to want to just go on trips or a whole bunch of different outings and leave you behind, especially if you're supposed to be in a relationship, that's your partner, and it seems like they want to do a lot of things on their own.
Mm-hmm.
That is a definite red flag of that narcissistic traits and those behaviors, because you have to wonder, why do they want to go off on their own? Like what's happening, why you can't be present or be there?
Right.
Right. Wow.
So it's definitely, a hard thing to live with this type of person because they don't see things your way ever. There's an excuse usually for not seeing things your way. So
Of course.
and the fourth one, so there's actually 8 of these. The fourth one is don't confront. It doesn't matter what you think, so just nod or keep your mouth closed. They will try to provoke you with issues they know will cut to the bone, but just stay strong while being verbally attacked. And so this is what we talked about in the last podcast. While being
Right.
verbally attacked, I often envision my loved one is talking into a mirror. It helps me to empathize with the feelings they have about the world and themselves.
Wow.
Mhm.
So with them, they're just kind of like they just start to lash out. And
Mhm.
it's like
Mhm.
and this is just something that they do. Is there anything that may precede this, or is this at random? Is there like a certain situation that may cause this to happen
Yeah,
that
well,
you've
they have to be upset about something that they're not getting their own way with.
seen?
Has to be something that, I mean, it can look many different ways. But they're not happy. They are very bad at giving validation, but they constantly want validation for their own feelings. And
Oh, of
they need to
course.
hear people tell them that they're right for the way they feel, and they're looking
Mhm.
for a yes person for sure all the time. They're looking for a new friend that'll say, "Oh, I think you're right." And they'll find them if they look for them long enough, they'll find
Sure.
somebody that will agree with them. And that's probably another person like the victim of the narcissism, though, that they are just an empathizing person and they're very sensitive. So they're listening and then they're trying to help this person feel better. So they sometimes tell them what they want to hear more than what they should tell them.
So that's interesting. So this person will just always just have a reason or find a reason just to just I guess go and have a tantrum, get angry or get upset or get super emotional.
Mhm.
They can kind of go to that extreme as well, just to try to um and then what is it that they're trying to get from you? Like what is the end game when they're doing this?
They are wanting a reaction. So there's some type of it, it's called the supply. When
Right.
they get the reaction from the person, where the person is either now crying or
Mm.
very upset or even yelling back, they're looking for the drama. They want this catharsis that they get from screaming at
Right.
the top of their lungs and having a good argument. And then once they feel like they've upset the other person enough, then they're like, "Phew, that was good." And so
Yeah.
then they'll kind of walk away and be about, and then they might come back and act like nothing happened.
Oh yeah. That's interesting because you'll still be upset and then they'll look at you like what are you upset about? Like what are you
Hmm.
like they almost look at you like you're crazy. Like why are you even angry for? Like what's going on?
Right, something's wrong with you. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
what's wrong with you? Right.
So number five is give them praise for the attributes that you do like about them. Any praise is good praise for them, even if it seems insignificant to you. They cannot hear words of affirmation enough, so indulge. This one might be difficult because people with narcissistic tendencies ignite the fight instinct in you, and you may have very strong negative feelings about them. So
Mm.
being good at words of affirmation with somebody that you're ticked off with, it's kind of hard to do. But
Yeah.
mhm,
I would think so. It'd be hard to compliment someone or to have kind or caring things to say when they're constantly making you angry all the time, but then they'll make you feel bad about it if you don't
mhm,
constantly give them the adoration and praise and the accolades and all that in front of people. So
mhm,
it's like a losing battle. It's like in private, it's almost like in private, they're one way, they're just like biting your head off. But then when you go out in public, they just want you to forget that they basically just bit your head off. And they want you to just act like you're this loving, in this loving relationship.
exactly. And that goes back to the whole idea of creating that image.
Right. Oh, wow.
The image
Wow.
of perfection. We're the perfect couple, we have the perfect family, we have the perfect car, we live in the perfect house. I
Right.
I have a perfect job. She is either a perfect stay-at-home mom or we have she's also a career woman, depending on what that person feels is important for the image to be continued.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
mhm,
Yes.
yeah.
So they'll just, they want to keep that image up and they'll do anything. Now, will this person how will they is it possible for this narcissistic type of person to just, even though they're trying to create this image, that they would still, even when they're out, kind of lose their cool every now and again? Or does that not happen?
Yes, yes. For the most part, with personality disorders. They're pervasive, meaning that it's in all aspects of their life. But
Right.
the different parts of the narcissism will come out in different settings. So
Right.
if the part of the narcissism is the grandiose feelings about themselves,
Yes.
when they go to, let's say they go to a barbecue and you're invited to a neighbor's house and there's other men there, and the men kind of split off and talk about their jobs, and the women split off and talk about the family or whatever. And so in that kind of a area, it's pervasive in that he is now going to talk about all the wonderful accolades that he's accomplished.
Right.
And if you're there standing with him and listening, you may actually hear him to actually fabricate some things about what he does. And in your
Of
mind, you're
course.
like, I know that's a little bit off, but okay.
Yeah.
And if you're not there, then he's got the freedom even more so to tell an even bigger story. And, the whole thing is, what is it? Create the image.
Create the image. Wow, that is amazing that they'll go that far, even as to make up stories. Because aren't they concerned that all these stories they're making up, that maybe at some point someone's going to engage in conversation with that spouse and they're going to say something like, oh yeah, I heard your husband or wife landed this big client, or this big account,
Oh,
and
yeah. Yeah, that happens. And I do know that there are some spouses of narcissists that realize, I know he lied. And so I would just try to smile and change the subject, because I don't want to help his lie continue, but I also know if I say anything, it gets back to him, I'm in big trouble. So I just kind of, is that what say, oh yeah, he said that? Okay. Whatever, just don't feed it. Just move on as fast as possible.
exactly. Well, and that's interesting, because with these narcissistic personalities, can it almost have you crossing a line? And we always go from the Christian perspective, right? And do they put you in compromising positions most times? Because, like that one instance where you're kind of questioned and you may have to lie, or you kind of get put in a situation where you're pigeonholed, where like maybe the questions keep coming, or maybe he involved you in the story. So now it's almost like you have to pick up where he left off with this extravagant lie. So
Right.
can it almost cause you to become put you in a position where you have to become a liar as well?
It could, but it shouldn't. I mean, as what I always tell people when they're struggling with stuff like that, like for instance, let's just hypothetically say that there was a client that knew that his wife wanted to lie on their taxes. Okay, so then I always say the way that you've got to look at this is you've got, now we're talking about a Christian perspective.
Right.
You've got the law of God that comes first. He's your priority. Your
Right.
husband or your wife comes next.
Right.
So, that's your priority next. So nothing that the husband or the wife wants should ever supersede what is biblically right to do.
Good.
So,
That's good stuff.
right. So if let's just say one spouse is telling another spouse, we're going to lie on the taxes and I don't want you saying anything about it, whatever. At that point, she does not have to do that. She can tell him, I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to sign this.
Wow. And now viewers, I want you to chime in on this one, because this is a very sticky situation here, because this can be any one of you, where you're put in a compromising situation where you're either forced to lie, or to sign something, or to say something happened that didn't. And what will you do? Chime in, comment, let us know. Let us know if you've ever dealt with something like that, because we want to hear from you, and any questions you have if you've been in this type of situation.
Right.
So Karen, thank you for that. And then also, I'm so glad you enlightened us on that. So there's always that compromise there, and they want to make themselves look good and be this grandiose and like this huge attention, and everything is all about me. Remember, that's what we're talking about. So what else do they do?
Okay. Well, here number 6 says, don't feel overjoyed by their compliments or hurt by their criticism. Remember, it has nothing to do with you. You are a tool for them to get what they want. So don't buy into their perception of you. You can go from favorite person to despised person in less than 24 hours. So aim for middle ground.
So that means at one point they can be talking you up and saying all this great stuff about you, and then the next minute you're like, that they're talking about you like trash. So now, when is an instance where this kind of thing can happen? And some things may be touchy, like maybe it could be talking about appearance, or maybe the way how they handle or take care of the kids. So where have you seen where there's been that extreme high and low of how the narcissist will treat their supply, pretty much their spouse, because that's what it is, right? You're basically supplying their needs, and it's not really, you're just a means to an end, right? So where have you seen that extreme, like an example in,
Okay. Well, it's all about what they want, right? So let's say that he's a parent or she's a parent that doesn't want to be the one that has to do most of the childcare of the kids, taking care of them. So they're home at, after work, and one of them is doing everything for the kids. The other one is sitting down, reading a magazine or playing video games, or just like acting as if they're one of the kids themselves. They're not even helping. So now the person that's doing all the work is kind of resenting it and doesn't, want to say anything because they've said things in the past, and then they get into a fight just for saying something. So now they've learned walking on eggshells, trying to keep them happy, keep her happy, get the kids bathed, get them ready, go to bed. So now the person really didn't connect emotionally at all with the other one. But now the kids are in bed. Oh, maybe now's the time to be intimate. Not going to work.
It's not going to work.
Not going to work. But that may be when they sweet talk, and when they're kind, and when they, what can I get for you? That kind of thing. And so it's like, you could have gotten me something earlier. You could have gotten me a couple of cups of milk for the kids when it was dinner time. Then again, the person's in for an argument. And I know a lot of people, they'll go through that whole routine with the kids. And then at night, they'll also do whatever it is that the narcissist wants, because they figure I'm better off spending some minutes with them, making them happy, or I can just spend 2 hours getting lectured and browbeaten for not complying with their wishes and what they want right now.
Yeah. So one of the things that they can do, I would think, is in those situations is like, let's say if they say, hey, can you at least, get, dinner for one of the kids or something while I'm helping one with their homework. And then would it be an example? They would say something like, oh my gosh, I go out and I work 8 to 10 hours a day and I bring in 6 figures or however much money. And then you want me to do that? I mean, I'm already working and tired all day. Like, is that the kind of attitude that you would get from them? Like they'll try to, dictate, lecture you.
Yeah, minimize what you do.
Right.
And maximize what they do. Right. And put themselves in a good light and put you in a bad light and make you feel foolish even having anything to say.
Right. Yeah. Like how crazy of you, after I've worked and done all of this, to ask me to get dinner ready or whatever, or even heat it up, when all you did was just sit at home all day.
Right.
Because that's how they sometimes look at what you do as a housewife. You're just sitting at home all day, even though you're taking care of kids. So when you said that it's time, like when it's at the end of the day, they've treated you pretty much like you're, nothing, and they wouldn't help you. And then now all of a sudden you're exhausted from cooking, cleaning, helping kids with their homework, disciplining, all of these things that you're doing. And, then you just want to basically rest. And then now they want to be intimate. It seems like the narcissists always want to be intimate at the most inconvenient times, or at the times where it may not be suitable for you, know?
Right. Well, now remember, they like drama. So they get something out of it either way. If you say no, then they get to have a fight and a lecture, and they like it. And then, but if you do give in, then they get what they really wanted in the first place. So it could serve a purpose for them either way, to have the argument or not. So, and either way, the other person is just being abused, because now it's, either way, I either get lectured and yelled at, or I have to do something I don't really feel like I want to do. Now, in a normal relationship where we're not dealing with a narcissist, things like this can happen, where couples can have an argument about, I'm tired and you didn't help.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a narcissist that does that.
Mhm.
But what will happen in a normal situation is, if, let's say, they haven't been connecting emotionally on a good emotional level, especially
Mhm.
women, their spirit can very easily be closed to a man. And if
Right.
spirit is closed and they're emotionally closed to the man, then it's going to be very hard for them to be intimate. They can't,
Of course.
the
Yeah.
spirit's up to this person, so they're not going to be able to do that. And it can be the same also for a man to feel that way, more so than not, because of the fact that men tend to have a stronger libido. A lot of times it's the other way. It's the woman that gets upset and wants, I don't want to say wants to withhold intimacy, but she wants to be validated and understood in a normal situation, that you haven't talked to me all day. You came home and did nothing to help. And now you want me, now that I'm exhausted and I got no help from you, you want me to now make you happy. I've made everybody happy. Now I gotta make you happy. So,
Right.
and that can happen even in a non-narcissistic relationship.
Exactly. Wow. And what about, have you ever seen the type where, even if it's not, maybe let's say at the end of the day, maybe when there's something important to you or for you to do, whether it be go to work, go to a meeting, or you have a client, and then they just tend to want to have these intimate moments, like they wouldn't dare be late for anything, but then they will try to make you late and all of a sudden want to be intimate at times when you have somewhere important to go or you have something to do. It's okay for you to be held behind them late over that, but they would never do it. So have you seen instances like that as well, like that type of control using intimacy and sex and things like
Oh,
that?
definitely, definitely. And actually, that is one of the points that I do talk about too, with we talked about financial investment
Yes,
at
yes.
the last time. And so intimacy investment, maybe I'll read this real quick, or at least part
Sure.
of it.
Yeah, let's do it.
This trait with narcissism, associated with an inflated, grandiose self-concept and a lack of intimacy in interpersonal relationships, is very pervasive. The narcissist perceives themselves as being unique and uncommon. Being intimate requires that two people operate commonly with openness and truth. That's the true
Right.
self. So that they relate as equals. The narcissist operates from a false self, and becoming equal to anybody would only negate their notion of uniqueness. So they
Right.
avoid that entirely. Unknown to them, narcissists are still held ransom in their unresolved conflicts with their primary objects, which are their parents,
Mm.
their caregivers. So, like the child, they are still harboring the deep wounds of abandonment they experienced back then. Oftentimes, that is the case. Oftentimes, with narcissists, there was some type of abandonment. Not always, though.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Afraid of their own negative emotions unconsciously, they promise themselves that they will never put themselves in that position again, and they avoid further narcissistic injury by holding everybody at bay. That includes their partner and children. I'll just stop there for now. So basically, they want to be the one to call the shots.
Right.
So if you are the one that's seeking intimacy, they like to withhold, because that makes them feel a sense
Right.
of power and control.
Right. It's almost like you're in the mood, you're ready to be intimate, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm tired. Oh, it's been a long
Yeah.
day, or I have to get to the gym, or I don't have time for that right now." Like,
Right.
you know, I'm not able to, or they may even use that excuse that they're not able to physically perform. So who knows what that may be about? But we
Mhm.
know it's the narcissism now.
Right. Right. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's so interesting to see all the different ins and outs of this, but yeah, for the sake of time, I will go on to the seventh one.
Sure.
Admit to yourself that you can never be close to this person. That's hard. This is the hardest one to accept, especially if you love the person. Find support from people without narcissistic traits to help
Right.
your needs for acceptance and love.
Wow.
Mhm.
So you're basically saying don't get your hopes up that this person can never give you any type of love, validation, security, support. They're just not those kind of people.
Without a miracle of some type of change happening, of course, I don't leave, I don't like to say I'd ever limit God because I know he can do things that we can't imagine, right?
Right.
The way
But we also have free will as well. God gave us free will, right?
yes,
So so if the will isn't there, if they're not willing and they don't think they did anything wrong and they're not being held accountable and don't think anyone should hold them accountable, it would be hard for that transformation and for that change in behavior to happen and for that acknowledgement of the wrongdoing and the hurt and the pain that's being caused
right.
their actions. So yeah, it's almost like if you don't feel like something's wrong with you, why would you change it? No one just changes just for the sake of.
They think everybody else is wrong. So
Right, exactly.
any
Right.
pushback that they get, it's got to be the other person's problem. So
Yeah, the other person's the problem for
yeah.
sure.
And then the eighth one, try to practice empathy. Underneath the heavy layers of emotional steel, there is an innocent and scarred person. Attempt to find that hidden person and seek to better understand how it must be for them to get by in the world. See them through an empathetic lens, and it might take the sharp edge off.
Well, I may have to disagree with you on that, Karen. And the only reason why I'll say that on that particular one is how long do you allow someone to be abusive and to treat you pretty much like garbage, and then you're just supposed to continually um, just allow this type of behavior? I'm not saying that you shouldn't forgive, because you should, right? But there comes a point where if you keep doing that, how do they ever figure it out? It's like, I understand long suffering, but I think it's long suffering to a point, because at some point now you become part of the problem and an enabler. If
Exactly.
you continue to just keep forgiving and making excuses and well, they had a rough childhood or they got abandoned and they did that, and
and that's
when does it stop? Like, when do you say, hey, this is enough, got to change?
Right. And that statement is meant for someone that's planning to stay in the relationship and live in it. And so if you want to maintain peace and not have the lectures and not have, then you've got to know how to behave so that you can have some sense of peace. Yeah, and it's a choice kind of a thing. Is it more peaceful for you to be lectured for 2 hours, be read at, or is it more peaceful for you to go with the flow and go along with everything they say until you can find the bravery to put the boundaries in there and do things the way that you really need to?
I've heard people use a term saying, like, you need to pick the lesser of two evils, and that's what that sounds like to me, because that doesn't sound like there's no win-win there. It's like
there's no. The person that's married to the narcissist, there's no winning.
Right.
It's going to end sad for them. If it's going to end, if they decide to leave, it's going to end sad. But if they stay in the relationship, they're still going to be sad. So there's no winning. They can make a choice. I mean, I do have people that have come to see me that said that they believe it's their mission to stay with this person and to see, like number 8 says, see that innocent and scarred child that's there that needs the the words of affirmation and all that. They think it's their job to stick with that person. And I believe that a part of it is, it's mostly Christian people that have come to me with that kind of a sentiment, and they'll say, who knows, maybe by something that God gives me the strength to do, it'll turn the lights on for them and they'll realize that they can't continue to be this way. Who knows? And so I'm not going to question them.
Mhm.
My job is to be there for them and help them cope and figure out what they can do to get through this, through each day of their life, because there's always something.
Yeah.
But they're choosing it.
So I want the viewers to comment on it, because do you feel like that God can call anyone to endure and suffer through that? Or do you feel like it's a personal choice? If there's anything that we've said today that has maybe struck a chord or made you think, or maybe you're thinking about your own situation, we definitely want you to comment. We definitely want you to ask your questions. And that way we can continue this conversation, because we're about to wrap this up. But that was just really a telling thing, that that a person can truly believe that it's their mission, or that it's their calling, or that maybe God put them together for that, maybe quote unquote purpose in life. I mean, to live in misery, I don't know, but it's just a matter of perspective and what the person may think in their mind and what their beliefs are. But like you said, it's we don't want to question it. If that's what their belief system is, that's what it is. And if you have a friend out there that's dealing with that, and something has resonated with you, feel free to chime in and reach out to us, because it must hurt you to see that person hurting. So you may need some support as well, and we want to support you. And then Karen, are there any final thoughts or anything that you want to leave with our viewers, so that they can continue to heal, and maybe to help others that are suffering through this?
I do have a strong feeling that right now, somebody listening is going to need just to hear somebody pray for them. And so
Yeah.
let's just do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, Lord Jesus, we just thank you for this time that we've had, Lord. Living with a narcissist is not an easy thing. Yes, there may be some people out there that feel that the person that they're with, that you put this mission in their life to help try to take care of this person, try to help this person maybe to see things differently and to pray for this person. But also that person that's carrying that weight, that burden for this person, they need help, they need care, they need people that love them, surrounding them. And so I do pray that you would surround them with people that love them and care for them, that will just be the listening ear and good confidants. And I pray that you'll also help them to have the wisdom to know when they need to take a break, and when they need to put more boundaries in their lives, so that they are not distressed as often as they are. And I just pray that you give them wisdom to know what you want for them to do, Lord. Order their footsteps, Lord, and help them walk this walk, and help them to know when they need to know when to let go. And we just ask this in your holy and powerful name, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Jesus. Amen. Well, thank you so much, Karen. I don't think there's anything else we need to say. You closed it out, and that is all we need. We thank you for listening. Just remember to like, share, subscribe. Narcissist, I'm asking for a friend, and Karen Maldonado, and I'm Tyler King, and we will see you on the next episode.
Yeah, see you next time.